This is the new Mercedes-Benz G500. If you're one of the fortunate few who can afford it, I envy you. And if you can't afford it, take a number and queue up with those who feel down about it. And who knows, you may just meet me in this line as well. With global annual sales in thousands of units, you heard me right, thousands, not tens, not dozens, not hundreds, just thousands of units, the G Class is an exclusive car. Meanwhile, its beginning suggested a more utilitarian future, like in the case of Jeep or Land Rover.
Let's start with the G. It stands for Geländewagen, which means cross-country vehicle in German. Works on the Geländewagen started in 1972 and production car, internally known as W460, was launched in the spring of 1979. The engine power was between 72 and 156 horsepower. There were many body types for the military and other services. W461 was exclusively for the military and W462 was for the Greek army. G Wagon was also licensed to Peugeot and also was sold under the Puch name. Since 1980, a white 230G was the Popemobile for Pope John Paul II. The car, later called the G Class or W463, debuted in 1990. Since then, Mercedes is trying hard to preserve as much from the original shape as possible, at the same time adding more modern and luxurious elements inside. Over the years, the G Wagon was powered by a number of engines, including a V12. The car was turned into a six-wheel pickup and a Maybach Landaulet, and it was a lifted 4x4 squared with portal axles. However, for 18 years, the G Class was one and the same generation with numerous facelifts.
Second generation G Class is still marked W463. At first glance it looks like just another facelift, but this new generation is around 170 kilograms lighter than the model it replaces. It's also 5 centimeters long. Okay, this is not 5 centimeters, this is about 5 centimeters longer than the previous model, and it's also around 12 centimeters wider, which translates into more space for the passengers and more cargo room.
But Mercedes didn't forget about things which make the G Class special. It remains boxy with a flat windscreen, trademark indicators on the fenders, visible hinges, spare wheel mounted on the tailgate, door handles with buttons, and of course the unmistakable sound of doors closing and opening. The boot is 454 liters to the window line, more or less twice as much to the roof line, and more than 4 times that with seats in the second row folded. In order to fold the backrests, you first need to lift the seats, under which you'll find a toolkit and a jack. In the boot there is a 12-volt socket and some anchor points, one net on the left side. I'd expect one on the door, but the door is finished in this quilted leather, so we wouldn't want a cheap net covering it, would we?
One does not simply enter the G Wagon, one climbs inside, and I do wish they mounted some additional handles on the B pillars for the people in the back and on the A pillars for people in the front. I have to grab this handle. There are side steps here which make it easier, so up I go, spare me the fat jokes. Now, once inside, headroom was never a problem. This was a military car and soldiers, as we know, usually wear helmets. Now, I doubt many families with children will use a car like this, but your 3 bodyguards should fit 3 abreast here with weapons discreetly concealed on them. And your bodyguards will also enjoy their 3rd zone climate control, and if they need to charge something like a walkie-talkie, there is a 12-volt socket and a fast charging USB port here. And if there are only 2 of them, and perhaps they're carrying a sniper rifle, like bodyguards often do, they can use this rather weirdly and awkwardly designed ski hatch. But yeah, they can run a sniper rifle through here, so if it's long barrel and stuff, no problem. perfect car.
Changes in the back can be felt, but changes in the front can also be seen. For years, the G Class may have had luxury features, but it was never particularly practical from everyday use perspective. It was rather an attempt to pack all the latest tech into a military car. Mercedes needed to somehow justify the astronomical price for a car which competes off-road with much cheaper Jeep and Land Rover. On the other end of the scale, there is Range Rover, which is equally, if not more luxurious, and definitely more usable in everyday life.
But despite looking like a 1980s off-roader, Mercedes gives you everything you expect from a modern limousine. Analog instrument cluster has been replaced with two screens. One displays virtual dials and the other one is your infotainment system, like in the E Class, for example. Also, like in the E Class and the new A Class, you can operate all these things with either these two little touch paddy things on the steering wheel, which at first feels a bit weird, but then you get used to it. Secondly, like in the E Class, there is a rotating wheel here and a touch panel here. In the A Class, you just get one huge touchpad down here. But unlike in the A Class, this is not a touchscreen, unfortunately, and you can't say, "Hey Mercedes," you have to press a button on the steering wheel to activate voice commands.
You can use voice commands to set your destination, change the ambient light color, or set climate control. Bit of a gimmick, I think. If you don't like Mercedes SatNav, you can use Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, but without a touchscreen, using it is somewhat awkward.
But is it awkward to drive? Let's find out. G500 is the less powerful of the two versions available at the time of filming. So this V8 bi-turbo produces measly 422 horsepower. If you want something truly powerful, you have to go for the 585 horsepower AMG G63. See? There's an Opel Insignia overtaking me. No, it's an Astra. Oh my god, how slow is this? Anyway, the G63 AMG is about as fast as a Range Rover Sport SVR, and the ordinary G500 is about as fast as ordinary Sport V8 supercharged, although it's not as good to drive. Now, I got into this car, spoiler alert, from the new BMW M5, and I'm falling asleep here. Okay, it's probably faster than your Vauxhall or your Buick, but this car is not about speed. First of all, it's hard to mask. This car is almost 2 meters high, and as a result it also has high center of gravity. Mercedes cleverly spec'd this test car with active bolsters, but even if I don't slide about in the seats, there is only so much you can do about the steering in an off-road vehicle. Even Mercedes admits the steering is, and I quote here, as direct as possible, as indirect as necessary.
With the G Wagon, you can scare people at the lights with your loud exhaust and fast takeoff, but it's better to let it go and enjoy the comfortable ride. You have a great view of the road, and despite the car being the shape of a brick, not much wind noise gets inside, even at motorway speeds. The car is surprisingly easy to drive for a 480 centimeters in length and over 190 centimeters in width. Sure, parking is not the easiest, but there is a 360-degree camera and parking assistant. The parking assistant... come on, you can park faster. Just remember, the spare wheel goes beyond the outline of the car. Reversing camera only shows you the towing hitch and the bumper, so you think you've got space, but you can hit a wall with the spare. As this is a car from the end of the second decade of the 21st century, G Wagon gets things like collision warning, adaptive cruise control and lane assist. but it's not going to drive itself as lane assist only brakes when you cross the white line, thus forcing you to correct.
For a 2.5-ton rig, G Class brakes very well, and the tow hitch means people behind you brake even better. Most potholes and bumps we meet in everyday situations don't exist for the G Wagon, it just glides over them. The only problem is fuel consumption. Mercedes was never big on economy, and discrepancies between claimed and real-life results are among the highest in the business. G500 should use about 12 liters per 100 kilometers combined, that's 24 mpg, and I was averaging 17 on the highway, which is incidentally also 17 mpg. Standard tank fits 75 liters, but you can increase it as an option to 100, that's 20 and 26 gallons respectively. But over the years, the G Class maintained not only its off-road looks, but also off-road abilities. These 3 locking diffs here are not just for show, and I'll tell you what they do in just a minute.
As it turned out, one of my viewers has a bit of a backyard where you can do some light off-roading. I don't want to test the 70 centimeters maximum wading depth or damage the undercarriage, because I'm one of the first media outlets in Poland to test the new G Class, and there's a long queue waiting. But it feels like one of the more capable off-road cars I have driven in my life. Now, these locking diffs are to split the torque evenly between front and rear, and then to split it evenly between left and right rear, and finally between left and right front. So you end up with all 4 wheels turning at the same speed, and even if only one of them has grip, it'll push the car forward. Mercedes didn't want to insult its off-road fanbase by offering hill descent assist, but all you have to do is to drop the car in manual mode and lock it in first gear to safely drive down steep inclines. Once you're in off-road mode, ESP, ABS and stop and start are off, so it's just you and the machine. Prices of the new Mercedes-Benz G Class start at €107,000, about 10 grand more than the Range Rover Sport V8 supercharged. For this kind of money you can get a fully loaded VW Touareg, but then there are options which bring the price of this test car to about €140,000.
Yes, there are more expensive and more practical cars out there, but none of them has the style and character of the G Wagon. I even started looking at classified ads for a short wheelbase cabrio, but a good one will cost you at least €100,000. A good 5-door, not too old, will cost you €50,000. Even the old army cars cost at least €15,000. So all I can do is stand in line with those who feel sorry for themselves because they can't afford the G Wagon, and you can be next in line.
Unless you don't like the G Wagon. Why? Let me know in the comment section below. Subscribe if you haven't, visit my Patreon page and consider helping me making more and better reviews. Link in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.